These films deal with characters on the cusp of something, struggling through that netherworld between childhood and adulthood. And the best of them capture the authentic feeling of growing up, and that has universal appeal.
Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against?
What do you got?
The protagonists of coming-of-age movies range across sex, sexuality, class, ethnicity, nationality, but they're all on a quest for identity.
Ladybird.
Is that your given name?
Yeah.
Why is it in quote?
Well, I gave it to myself. It's given to me by me.
Okay. Take it away, Ladybird.
This is a key theme of coming-of-age films, the idea that who you are is up for grabs, and if you don't decide for yourself, others will try to decide for you. We can see it in movies from the 1955 classic Rebel Without a Cause to the 2017 Oscar winner Moonlight. This central theme is spelled out to the young hero by a father figure, drug dealer Juan.
At some point, you gotta decide for yourself who you're gonna be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you.
Lending heartfelt voice to characters who've previously been silenced or sidelined, it's an astonishingly accomplished work, a coming-of-age movie which returns time and time again to the same repeated question.
Who is you, Sharon?
I'm me, man. I ain't trying to be nothing else.
From the streets of Barnsley in Ken Loach's Kes to Tehran in Marjane Satrapi and Vincent Parano's Persepolis, the settings of truly great coming-of-age movies make the unfamiliar seem familiar.
Iron Maiden.
Hey, how much do you want for it?
92 months.
50.
60.
50.
60.
50.
50.
Whether it's a high school hallway, a small town street,
Hey, see you, Janice!
or a family dinner table, the best of these films make us feel that this is where we live, at least for the duration of the movie.
Where you? Boom! Hey, the shirt, wash the shirt, stupid.
Okay, basta! All right, come on.
But you can't detach where these stories take place from when they take place. Coming-of-age movies are, by their nature, set in the past. If not the literal past, then in the past of the filmmaker's experience, because teenagers themselves don't usually get to make movies. So even if the target audience is teens, in general, these films are made by adults looking back at their past, often with a hefty dose of nostalgia. Arguably, the most important choice a director makes when creating a film in this genre is who to cast. By definition, most stars of coming-of-age movies won't be seasoned professionals. They'll be younger performers. Directors often have no choice but to go by their instincts when casting. Steven Spielberg famously cast Henry Thomas to play Elliot in E.T. after an audition in which the young actor started crying at the idea of having his alien friend taken away from him.
Well, he's mine, and he lives with me, and he likes me. And he wants to stay here. He likes it here.
Well, we wouldn't hurt him or anything. All we want to do is talk to him.
But I don't want you to take him away.
An audition which reduced those watching it to tears.
Okay, kid, you got the job.
So many great scenes from coming-of-age movies play out to a jukebox soundtrack, it's little wonder that pop music has become one of the fundamental building blocks of the genre. As film producer Steve Woolley once observed, pop music in movies is like a knife. You twist it and nostalgia comes pouring out. It's been exploited by producers on both sides of the Atlantic to conjure specific eras. From the British classic Quadrophenia, based on The Who's 60s set rock opera.
What's this rubbish then?
Ready, steady, go.
To Richard Kelly's 80s set cult classic Donnie Darko.
You should just go to City College. You know, with your work ethic, just go to City College and then to jail and then back to City College, and then maybe you'd learn to pull yourself up and not expect everybody to do everything.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
For every child or stunted adolescent at the centre of the coming-of-age movie, there's a grown-up who helps define them either by inspiring or understanding them, or giving them something to revolt against.
Not
Sometimes parents embody a wider cultural conflict.
Anyway, there was a scout from America there today, and he's offered me a place at a top university with a free scholarship and a chance to play football professionally. And I really want to go. And if I can't tell you what I want now, then I'll never be happy whatever I do. You let her leave her sister's wedding.
With parents flawed or even absent from coming-of-age films, other figures may take on the role of mentor, reaching out to support alienated children and inspire them. In Persepolis, the story of a rebellious teenager growing up against the backdrop of the Iranian Revolution, this figure is our heroine's grandmother. She tells Marjane to stay true to herself, an important lesson in any journey to self-discovery.
In your lifetime, you're going to meet a lot of jerks. If someone hurts you, just tell yourself it's due to their lack of intelligence. That way you'll never sink down to their level.
Whether the adults are oppressive or benign, escaping from their world can often be a liberating moment for our heroes. Like the adults we've just seen, there's something inherently ambiguous in the idea of a gang. It can be supportive of the protagonist, but also potentially dangerous. Celine Sciamma's Girlhood is one of my favourite movies of recent years and tells the story of teenage life in the housing projects of Paris. It's about a gang of girls whose pastimes involve fighting and thieving, both of which become bonding rituals. The closeness of the girls is captured in a key moment in which the gang dance in stolen dresses. In this scene, Rihanna's Diamonds is allowed to play out uninterrupted as the group of girls dance and sing along. It's a bonding moment which approaches transcendence. But one emotion can dominate adolescence, the most bittersweet rite of passage of all. Taking a lead from Romeo and Juliet, the forbidden nature of a love affair, whether for reasons of gender, culture or race, may act as the dramatic motor of the story. Recently, Call Me By Your Name became an awards-garlanded hit, dealing with the once taboo subject of a relationship between a young man and his older male paramour, riffing on themes from The Graduate, but inflected with the same sensuality which infused Blue Is the Warmest Colour, the story of a relationship between a teenage girl and an older woman. And then there are the coming-of-age movies which completely blur gender lines. Films like Makoto Shinkai's Your Name, in which the male and female protagonists swap their bodies and sexes. Whatever the gender, most coming-of-age stories tap into that endless love idea that you'll never love anyone as much as your first love. In these stories, young love rarely ends well. Often, the best you can hope for is bittersweet memories as you face the cold light of day. As we've seen, coming-of-age movies show characters on a journey between childhood and adulthood. So something has to happen that changes everything. These big moments of change usually come later in the film. Think of Stand By Me, where the children's discovery of the dead body happens in the third act. But even in the gentlest of scenes, there's something about the end of childhood that makes for some of the most emotionally resonant moments in cinema. How many adults watching the end of Toy Story 3 with their children could maintain a dry eye as Andy passes his beloved Woody and Buzz on to the next generation?
I have some toys here. Ooh, you hear that, Bonnie?
It's a remarkably moving scene because we've all been through the moment when we quite literally put away childish things. It's in the very nature of the genre that life still lies ahead for most of these characters, and we leave them facing an uncertain future, but hopefully just that little bit wiser. It's no coincidence that so many coming-of-age films, from The 400 Blows to This Is England to Moonlight, end in the same way, with their hero staring out towards a distant horizon, then turning to look at the camera to connect with us.